Hi, this is Anita from the Dusty Roads Podcast. If you've been listening at all to my podcast, which I hope you have been, one of the things you know that I've talked about from time to time is about sailing. Now you might say, well, what does sailing have to do with travel? Well, actually an awful lot, because there's lots of great places that you can go around the world to sail and to see parts of the world. But I want to talk today about some of sailing myths and misconceptions and what some of them are and whether they're actually a myth or not. Here I have 7 of them that I have outlined as to different types of what I would call sailing myths or misconceptions. The first one I'd say is you need to be rich to sail. A lot of people sort of this feeling that sailing's sort of like a rich man's sport. You need to be rich to sail. Yes, if you need to own your own boat, it's very expensive to own your own boat. But, in many places around the world, and in even like the United States, there are community sailing centers, which makes it really quite economical and not so costly to be able to sail and learn to sail. One of the great places that I always highly recommend where I've sailed at is Milwaukee Community Sailing Center. I love their sailing center. They have a fantastic program. They have fantastic teaching program for sailing, and it's extremely economical to be able to sail there. So, look around and see if your community has a, community sailing program that you can get involved with and that you can be part of if you want to be able to learn to sail. Also, in many parts of the world, you'll find that there are, communities and other places that also may be able to rent out boats, or you may be able to use a sailboat for, not really so much money. So there are ways that you can still have a great adventure with sailing, and you don't necessarily need to be rich to be able to do it. The other one is that only young people can sail. Many people think that, you have to be young to be able to sail. Of course, it helps to be young to do a lot of things. When we were all younger, we were able to do a lot of things. Maybe we didn't have some of the fears that we have now, but many older people can still sail. I sailed with a woman who was 87 years old in the Milwaukee Community Sailing Center who continues to sail, and she, in fact, sails more hours per summer than anyone else does and is one of the best sailors around because she really, really knows what she's doing. So you don't have to just be someone young to even to learn to sail or to be able to sail. You can basically do it at any age. Age is really just a number. You have to be an expert swimmer. Of course, it helps if you're out there on the water and that you like water when you go out to sail, that you want to be able to sail. But if you take the precautions and, in particular, wear a life vest on when you're out there on the water, which I really highly recommend that you wear a life vest. It just makes sense that if you happen to fall off a boat or something, that you have the life vest on, that you have the life vest. And then there's not as much danger. The danger happens when people are out boating and they do foolish things like they don't have on a life vest. So a life jacket, life vest is important. You can get life jackets now which are very thin, which they don't really feel like you have anything on. If you really don't like one, consider getting yourself one of those that would still have the same type of safety. Be in calmer waters if you're not quite sure. Don't go out in the rough seas. And, train and learn and make sure that you learn and you have a training on it so that you understand exactly what you're doing. Some people think, well, sailing's too difficult to learn. It is hard to learn. I mean, I must say, sailing is not easy. I thought it would be, maybe easier than it was, but it actually is difficult. There's lots of things you need to learn. That woman that I talked to you about before that was 87 years old and did so much sailing. I sailed with her once and she said, I learn something new every time I go out and sail. So sailing is one of those sports that every time you go out, you're going to learn something new. There's always something new to be learned when you go out sailing. And maybe that's the beauty of sailing, is you be able to get out there and be able to learn something new all the time. Sailing is dangerous. Sailing can be dangerous. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But it's dangerous when you don't know what you're doing. It's dangerous when you go out in high winds that you should not be out in. It's dangerous when you don't know how to be able to control the boat. Then it becomes dangerous. But if you get the right training, then sailing is not dangerous. You really need to understand the wind. And that's why at the sailing center I was part of, at the Milwaukee Community Sailing Center, they had different qualifications for different people: light air, medium air, heavy air. And only those sailors who had been qualified for heavy air were able to go out in the higher winds. Or, you could be on a boat with somebody, or a boat had to at least have one person that had heavy air ratings that was on the boat if we were out in heavy air. That's just for a safety precaution, because you want to make sure that the boat is safe. You want somebody who knows what they're doing, that understands the winds. Winds can change so fast when you're out there. And so you really want to be able to, sailing is not dangerous as long as you know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, like any sport, can be dangerous. When I lived in Hong Kong, many times during the typhoon, when there was a big typhoon coming, some idiots would decide that they need to go out windsurfing in the weather because the wind was so good. And, many of them ended up dead because of the fact that they were making foolish decisions like that. Yes, if you make foolish decisions like that, you could end up in trouble. But if you are cautious, if you're well trained, and if you know what you're doing, then you should be safe. Sailing requires lots of physical strength. There is some physical strength required in it, but there's a lot more modern equipment these days that make it easier. Lots of teamwork involved. The boats that I sailed required teams. You can choose a type of sailing that will fit your fitness level. I've sailed with people that had 2 prosthetic legs that were able to still sail. So really, sailing is, there's many different type of people are able to sail. There's all types of fitness levels which are involved. I've sailed with people that, like I said, had, physical disabilities that were still able to go out and sail. So that's one of the great things about sailing, is the ability that it has for all people of all levels to be able to enjoy it. You need to live near the coast. Living near the coast is great. Sailing on the ocean is great. Of course, it helps if you live by the coast. But there's lakes and rivers. There's community sailing centers that are, maybe on smaller lakes. There could be travel opportunities for you to be able to go sailing to certain places and be able to sail out on those waters. So it's not necessarily geographically restricted. You do need to be near water. But of course, sailing can be a great way to be able to travel the world. You'll take up sailing, consider sailing as a sport. It's a really great sport. It's a fun sport. It's a great way to meet some great people along the way. I have always found all sailors I've met just to be great individuals and a lot of fun, and to be really a great community among many of the sailing centers and sailing communities around the world. So you don't need to be rich. You don't even need to be an expert swimmer. You can take up sailing and go explore the world or go explore the high seas. This is Anita from the Dusty Roads podcast. I've written a blog post on this called the Top 7 Sailing Myths and Misconceptions Debunked. If you're interested, we hope that you'll read our blog post, and that if you have any questions or comments, we'd sure love to hear from you. We are thankful for you, our listeners.